Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Tombstone Tourist. For those of you that haven't already figured it out by watching some of my past videos, I was at one time a large NASCAR fan. In particular, a fan of NASCAR Winston Cup racing. So when I found myself traveling through the sandhills of North Carolina, I just had to stop at a place NASCAR fans simply remember as The Rock. Originally known as the North Carolina Motor Speedway, today The Rock is officially known as the Rockingham Speedway. The Rock's first race was the 1965 American 500, which was won by NASCAR legend Curtis Turner. For the next 40 years, The Rock hosted 2 Winston Cup races a year with drivers like Richard Petty, David Pearson, Cale Yarborough, Buddy Baker, and Bobby Allison, all finding their way to victory lane. Those were the glory days of NASCAR, but in the late 1990s and early 2000s, NASCAR decided to expand to bigger markets and leave its southern roots. Tracks like Darlington, North Wilkesboro, and Rockingham eventually lost their place on the NASCAR schedule to places like California and Chicago. The final NASCAR Winston Cup race held here at the Rock was the Subway 500 on February 22, 2004. After Matt Kenseth celebrated in victory lane, NASCAR abandoned the Rock and moved on to what it thought was bigger and better things. Since then, Rockingham has pretty much sat abandoned. Over the years, there's been attempts to revive the Old Speedway, but for the most part, those attempts have failed. But there may be hope. Rumors are floating around that NASCAR may be looking to return to the Rock in the not-too-distant future. After all, NASCAR did recently return to North Wilkesboro, so we can all hope that one day soon, the Rock will roar back to life. After spending some time reminiscing at the Rock, it was time to continue my journey. A few minutes later, I found myself in the small town of Ellerbe, North Carolina, which is probably best known as being the home of professional wrestler Andre the Giant and NASCAR driver and broadcaster Benny Parson. On the way out of town, I made a quick stop at the Ellerbe Cemetery to pay my respects to another NASCAR personality that called Ellerbe home, track promoter and car owner L.G. Dewitt. Lindsey Guy Dewitt was born on March 23, 1912 here in Ellerbe, North Carolina. After the Great Depression, L.G. bought several apple and peach orchards that were scattered throughout the sand hills of North Carolina. The success of his orchards enabled him to start his own trucking company. L.G. DeWitt Trucking, along with his orchards, made L.G. a very wealthy man, which led to his involvement in NASCAR. L.G. became one of the principal owners of the North Carolina Motor Speedway at Rockingham, and he also became a car owner and sponsor of a NASCAR Winston Cup race team. L.G. DeWitt fielded cars for such drivers as Henley Gray, Elmo Langley, Leroy Yarborough, Benny Parson, and Joe Milliken. During his 16-year career as a car owner, his cars competed in 530 NASCAR Winston Cup races, taking the checkered flag 12 times. His cars finished in the top 5 177 times, and in the top 10 315 times. In 1973, L.G. DeWitt, with Benny Parson as his driver, won the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. NASCAR has always been a very expensive sport, and by the late 1970s and early 1980s, multi-car teams began to gobble up the big money sponsorships. Small independent teams like LG's found it very, very difficult to compete. Finally, the sport became too expensive, and at the end of the 1981 season, LG Dewitt was forced to close the doors on his NASCAR race shop. After closing his race shops, Mr. Dewitt continued his involvement with the North Carolina Motor Speedway while continuing to operate his orchards and trucking company. LG Dewitt passed away on October 9th, 1990 at the Moore Regional Medical Center in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Benny Parson once said that LG Dewitt was a very astute businessman. He was fair and he treated his employees right. But most of all, he was a true Southern gentleman. Well, I'm going to end this video here to Ellerbe Cemetery in the Sand Hills of North Carolina. Do any of you remember LG Dewitt or any of the people that we visit in these videos? If you do, please share your memories with us in the comments. And what do you think? Will NASCAR return to the Rock? I'll be most interested in hearing what you think. Now, until next time, please remember, life is a wonderful journey. Be sure to take time and enjoy it. And I'll see you down the road. So long, everybody.